Okay, well, welcome to the Two Guys podcast. We've got Jonathan Farrell with his daughter today, right?
Yeah,
over at the school stuff.
Yeah, then they fly out later this afternoon. I don't know where
So
they're
we
going.
have to welcome Rick Hancock, Palmer's husband, mortgage extraordinaire, mortgage loan officer extraordinaire. So we were talking a little bit about the skill earlier in some of our other podcasts, but our illustrious cameraman and editor,
The tech guy.
has this is one of your products actually. Yeah. So he was just talking about having a distribution system and making some money on the side. And we talk about commission only people. And if you're in commission only, and if you're a salesperson, over your lifetime, you will get approached by Amway, Nutrilite, Herbalife. I mean, people who are successful doing these types of things. There's a bunch of them. I don't remember all. Agile. I tried Agile. It's the only one I ever did, by the way. And I didn't like the product that much, so I stopped doing it. But what I would always say to everybody is, if I spent the kind of time that I'm going to spend on the second business, on my existing business, since I'm on commission only and I got my own little thing going, I'm going to make way more money. So that's why I wouldn't do it. If you're in a salaried position somewhere, how are you ever going to make any more money? So these opportunities are really good opportunities for people like that. But we were talking about where do you find the time? And in 1981, unfortunately, I've made it this far, 58 years old. Most people didn't think I was going to. And in 1981, I was 18 years old, and I went to Great Falls, Montana. And my Uncle Bill took me to a Amway presentation, and it was $110 to get started, and I did that. And I never sold a thing. It sat on, I bought some soap, and there's some other
things. So they made $110 off you?
Yeah, I didn't do anything. I never did a thing with it. But it did make a big difference in my life, and you know what it did? This guy said to me, "What are you going to do? Go home every night and watch TV?" And I was like, well, remember, there's only 3 channels back then, ABC, CBS, and NBC. Yeah. And there was no such term as couch potato. Nobody had their brain sucked out by 2,200 channels yet. None of that had happened.
Insane.
People still read books, magazines, newspapers. They did stuff like that. But the one thing that got us all was the newscast every night. And that's what he was referring to, the 1-hour newscast. He's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're just going to sit down and, I'm 18 years old. I never watched that much TV. I was out partying, doing football, chasing girls. I was in high school, right? So now I'm on my own up in Montana. And I said, well, yeah, okay, well, what do I do? He said, you just focus on something else during that time. He says, it's going to be the same thing every time you tune in. There's going to be this happening and that happening. It's going to be a different person every time, but the actual trauma and stuff, it's going to be the same. Well, guess what? Later in life, I went to work for CBS. And do you know what we created that year? That we hired a guy named Glenn Beck, who was an alcoholic Mormon out of Florida. He was a shock jock. So we were trying to get more viewers because everyone said they want family oriented, but we didn't. We went with, if it bleeds, it leads. The 3 ways to die. That was the joke inside the studio. We're going to start the newscast today with one of the 3 ways to die: a drowning, a shooting, or an auto accident. Which one's it going to be? Well, we didn't have any in our town. So thank God for satellites. We're going to go look. Oh, look, New York. I lived in Redding, California, and Great Falls, Montana. Right now we live in Temecula Valley. Murrieta is one of the...
Not that much happens here.
Not much happens. People love to buy guns around here. That's not why we're safe. We're safe because it's the second safest city in the nation, Murrieta, right? So we're surrounded by...
True?
But if we watch enough, we get scared enough. Her sister, we used a wrist leash at the mall. That's how scared we got one time in life because of the news. And I remembered this. And we stopped it. We stopped watching the news.
Yeah.
And it changed everything because we weren't afraid anymore. And we thought our dreams were possible again. And what we learned was that television wasn't bad for kids. It was the commercials. That's what the San Juan Capistrano School District,
why it's
right?
so awesome that they've invented things that you can literally avoid the commercials, like Netflix and
That's why those things, TiVo,
mm-hmm.
TiVo was the way we could record it and eliminate the commercials, fast forward through the commercials, all this. But what, am I right? Isn't that where you put your time? Mm-hmm. So we get the time.
Just sitting on
where do we find our time?
So when you are doing something, let's say it's either your full-time job or your part-time selling, because I have a ton of friends who do Monat. It's a hair care and skincare line. It's vegan. It's got all these great things, but when it comes down to it, it's a pyramid. scheme, you know, whatever. They have to buy it up front with
The
their own
people
money.
that top make all the money.
Right, exactly. You know, and they have these, you know, incentives to somehow you get a Cadillac paid for and, you know, crazy things. But I do have friends that sell it, and I use the hair stuff because one of my good friends sells it, but not to make money. She does it so she gets a discount on it and that type of thing.
Mom used to do Avon that way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when it comes to doing that either full-time or part-time, is it important to enjoy what you're selling, to be able to say, I use this product, or I do this, and I enjoy it, like, sincerely, or is that just a bonus?
Well, I would use Rick as an example because Rick does all of the mortgages for Hardy Homes and Estates, and anyone that we, you know, Hardy Realtors, PVH Ventures, you know, Nick's Fix Homes, everybody, Seven Hills Engineering, anyone in that group is always referred to Rick, who does everything, because we have a good experience with that. We wouldn't use anyone but Rick ourselves because of one reason. And everyone thinks it's because he's my son-in-law. That's not why. No. It's because he does it the way we think it should be done.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about like what the, you know, like where, when we always talk about mortgage rates in this business, and you can't control that. I mean, you know, a little bit, right? But for the most part, you can be responsive. And so what is it that makes you so different? So why does everyone use you?
What makes you better?
So
I think we can only refer them.
I mean, rates are rates, right? They go up and down daily. You can't really control them. You can offer better rates. You can be competitive. But I think kind of going back to the skill thing, which is imperative in sales, and to kind of give a backdrop, my previous job was totally different industry, right? Totally different industry. But
well, what was it?
It was coaching.
Coaching what?
Swimming. Right? So
at what level? Baby kids?
No. We were club. We were club.
Trying to get
Olympians. The kids trained on the national level, went all over the country to do competitions. But I think the biggest thing that helped me be successful was sales, that attitude, but I had no idea that I was doing it.
Right.
Until I talked to you.
You didn't know you were doing sales.
You didn't talk like a salesperson.
Right. So I'm good with people. I know that. Yeah. You're constantly wearing different hats. You're putting out fires. You're trying to make people happy. So that was what I did for 13 years. And it wasn't until, 3 years ago, you put a seed in me and you said, you're already doing it. You're already doing the sales part. Right. But that wasn't part of my job. It was just me, who I was.
What you were getting for it was hours of work, 12 to 14 to 16 hours a day, position. 7 days a week on a salary, and everything you put into it went into a hole, and it never paid you back.
Right.
Yeah, your quote bonus at the end of the year.
Right. So it helped our programs grow. It helped us get to the top in the country, teams, multiple teams. It helped me get dream jobs all the way to Santa Barbara, but you make a flat salary, right? And so
you always called it a cap. You're like...
Your cap. Yeah. You can only get so high. And then you get married, you have a baby, and you start thinking about different things, which is where you just kind of dropped a little seed. At some point, we were still in Memphis before we moved out here.
Oh, yeah. That's when it was.
And you said, look into this industry. Look into this industry. You're already doing it constantly. You see me on the phone. You see me on the weekends. Constant, right? So it made me successful there, but it didn't translate into freedom. Right, so kind of going back to the skill thing, which is imperative in sales. Sales, riskier, right, because it's not a flat salary, but...
It's not a sure thing.
Right, but you have the ability to create your own schedule, to have freedom when you have a wife and a baby, but also you're not capped. So it comes back to skill, and it's honing the skill of sales, which I think you've been a tremendous help kind of shaping how I think of that. Right, so doing sales before but not really knowing it, now this is the only thing I'm doing and I have to master it.
It's also like you just have to have some natural people skills, which you do. You're great on the phone. People like you just naturally. You don't try and bullshit them. You talk to people honestly. You tell them what's up, what they need to do. You know, you're not trying to just like... prime example. There's been a couple of mom's clients that have had really, really bad credit, so they can't buy right away. If they do, they're going to get a terrible interest rate and a lower, loan. And you just are recommending what they can do to make it better, because it's not about the immediate thing. You're like, I'm going to get money off this right away. Let's just give it to them. You're like, this is going to be better for you in the long run.
That is really important. I noticed that you never, ever once have had commission breath. And right? The commission breath, they're trying to sell. And because you seem to take tell me if this is if I'm right. You seem to take everybody in as, well, of course I'm going to work with you someday. You just need to adjust this to get where you want, and I'll help you get there. Yeah. Your credit's a little off for the size of home you want to buy. Your income might be, this, that.
Wait till that bankruptcy's off, like whatever it is.
Right. I think the key is honesty, but developing an honest relationship requires developing the relationship in the first place. So when I talk to somebody on the phone, I don't care about whatever commission's coming. It doesn't matter. You kind of get to know the person. You have a little empathy. You learn their familial life. You learn it all. And so you develop this unique relationship with them. So like I had a lady on the phone 2 weeks ago, right? She didn't have great credit. She can't get approved for much. But the more you learn, the more loopholes there are. So I learned about her car payments and this and that. And so I gave her some advice, which is the cool thing about this industry. It's not just about a home loan. It's, here are your debts. And then we have a program we can run that says, I can shift numbers around if you pay off that card or this card, or if you refinance your car, or this and that. You can help them get back on track. So you're helping people. Mm-hmm. So in the end, we may get a mortgage loan out of it. But it's just cool being able to call like this woman and say, listen, if you refinance your car, you're saving $220 a month. Okay, you're going to extend the car payment for 2 years, but you're saving $220 on the front end, which helps you get approved for a higher loan. Mm-hmm. And her reaction was just like an epiphany. She didn't even cross her mind. But that little transaction of conversation is that's what you can't trade, right? Right. So she trusts me. But you have to build that trust because people are giving their financials to you. And it's their important. Full financial life. That's nerve-wracking.
And a lot of people forget, we did a training years ago on what is trust. Because it was really a question that kind of came up, it came from another training in which we spent an entire week on humility. What was humility? And everyone thought it was humiliation. And it turned out
no one knew what humility meant.
Nobody knew what it meant. I mean, literally people were like, oh God, I don't want to be humble, I don't want to be, and I didn't, and I didn't know. I didn't have a dictionary, at the get-go. And what happened is we decided it was teachable. See, so, in your case, we're finding out that sales is helping. Sales is problem solving. And we had a meeting before the podcast, and we discussed the concept of that what I'm trying to coach everyone on, because you're involved in a bigger process. But a lot of people forget that when they work with you, for example, they have access to a design firm, they have access to a real estate company, they have access to an engineering firm, and they have an access to a project management firm, and everything from design, build to sell, and management in that process, and
the
all
whole
the pieces.
Package.
Everything. And that is when they get involved with you, that's what they're getting. And then also you do mortgages. Yes. It's kind of like that.
Right.
That's what I just heard you say, kind of.
Yes,
right?
Essentially,
so
yes.
I'm going to understand your life. I'm going to understand what's going on. I'm going to make a bunch of recommendations. And at the end, I'm going to go, oh, and by the way, that's how you get this thing that you wanted. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You wanted that, and I'm going to help you get
Can
it.
You talk about that at some point? It's like, what do they want? And then you present them. But then if they don't change what they want and stuff, you're not going to then give them a different thing. Yeah. Like, what about this then? So
the first part that I was saying was creating chaos. That's what you're doing. Everyone's like, I want to be successful. Scott, can you help me learn to be successful? I always say, I don't know how to teach you how to do that. I wouldn't know what will get you motivated or not. I don't know anything. I don't know how to help you. I can tell you what I did. And I can tell you one thing. I didn't build success once. I created chaos. You guys are talking about doing VRBOs or Airbnbs. Oh, that's chaos. And at the end, if you solve all the problems of having people come into your place and trash it and keep their deposit and charge correctly and be a whatever million-star host and all the stuff that goes on with it, guess what you get? Profit and money. Mm. But you got to solve the chaos.
Right.
that you created.
Right. Yes.
You
And
created.
create as much chaos as you can. Find all the problems and the solutions beforehand.
That's
right?
where the income
Yeah.
comes from. Problem solving, solution based. Okay, people talk about company focused versus employee focused or customer focused. You got to always remember, it's always company focused. Every decision I make is designed to get more money for the company. So that means be better with the clients. I mean, if it worked to slap our client in the face first and criticize them and they just wrote a big check, believe me, we were about slapping people and criticizing them for a living. I mean, it just doesn't work.
But treating your clients well and being
Right.
honest is what works, right?
Well, what works is sincerity.
Yeah.
And in sales, when you can fake that, you've got it made. No, that's an old joke. But anyway, in the actual
You can
sincerity,
fake
and I can spot insincerity a mile away, and I don't care what, that will flip me out faster than anything. I'd rather you just say, I just don't like you. I'm like, well, good, I don't like you either now, because you don't like me. I did like you, but now you don't like me. You're not laughing at my jokes, you're not getting what's going on, you're not that smart of a person, I don't like you either. That's how I am.
Yeah.
I just am that way. But I can't be that way 24 hours a day. I'm not gonna have any clients.
Right.
So what do I have to do with a client? What I have to do with a client is I have to do a needs analysis. That is a skill-based task. It's a task. So you establish rapport, you transition, and trust is a choice.
Yeah.
So you walked in today and you're wearing your cool Volcom shirt. I've got my Psycho Bunny shirt on, okay? I'm sleeping again. I feel great. I feel wonderful. This is how I am. I'm an artist. I don't really care. Sales was a way to make money for my kids. Do you feel that the same way?
Yeah.
Okay. But when I build a table or I paint a painting, I want it to come out the best I can. So when I make a sale, I want it to come out the best it can.
Right.
And the one thing I want out of a sale is another sale.
Yeah.
See, this is when it changes in sales, when you start thinking like Rick and like the people in this podcast, which is, I don't care whether you buy from me or not that much. I don't even know if you can yet. I don't know anything. Why am I going to get all worked up? I'm going to investigate it. I have a lot of skill. And what that skill is that I know all the answers I'm going to ask you. And when I say that, I mean, I know what the answer should be.
Yeah.
And you have now exposed to me a sickness that you have in finance, marketing, sales, operations, right? Personal, spiritual growth, whatever it might be, that I know the answer to. How am I going to get through to you? Well, you showed up, you look good. I trust you. Why? You seem normal. I should trust. While you're speaking to me, you say something that is a red flag, which is, I call Jimmy Jammy talk. And there used to be a guy we worked with.
You notice he makes up a lot of words.
It's what well, do you know what Jimmy Jammy talk is? Does anyone know what Jimmy Jammy means?
What does Jimmy Jammy talk?
It doesn't mean anything. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything. There is no answer to it. What's Jimmy Jammy talk? Exactly. What is Jimmy Jammy talk?
Bullshit.
Well, you can't say bullshit on the podcast. Now we have to edit it or
Well,
beep it.
well, now he has to do it twice because you said it too.
I did it on purpose. Okay.
He's like, "Dang it." No,
So
I
when
keep
people start talking too fast, they blow over your questions, and they don't do this, which you are really good at, and I believe our firm and the Two Guys Mortgages are great at. Active listening.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone want to describe active listening?
I read that book.
Okay.
The art
art-
of listening, right? Or
But what is active listening?
something. Well, you're listening to what they're saying, not thinking about how you want to respond to what they're saying.
So, Rick, what kind of home are you looking for?
For a 2-bedroom, 2-bath.
So you guys are looking for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath?
Yeah.
That's active listening. I repeated to him what he said to me so that I can. Now let's go a little deeper.
follow.
Let's go a little deeper in the conversation. I'm going to make a mistake so that you can correct me, right? And that's the value of active listening. So go ahead. So you're looking for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. What other characteristics are you looking for in the home?
Maybe this is a question you should ask my wife. She dictates that. No, but
Yeah, I know.
2,500 square feet, a nice plot of land, space.
When you say nice plot of land, what do you mean by a nice plot of land?
Space
Oh,
to build
large
things.
land.
A good bit of land, yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Can you say?
I'm from the East Coast where they build out, so you have plenty of land. We're in the West Coast where they build up, so there's less land. I'd like a balance of the two.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're really looking for, I'm going to do this wrong to get him to, so you're looking for just a ton of acreage is what you're really looking for, is a lot of land.
Not a ton of land, not a lot of acreage.
Oh, not a lot of acreage.
Yeah.
So what, like maybe even a half acre, or is a quarter acre okay?
2 to 3 acres.
2 to 3 acres,
Yeah.
okay. So you see how this conversation's going? I'm repeating back to him what he asks me, and that, I mean, what I hear him say. That's active listening. I'm actively listening to him. I'm feeding it back to him. I'm not an educator, so I may be saying this a little bit off for those of you who are. And then he says, nope, that's not what I said. If you recall one of the earlier trainings on this podcast, it was to say, instead of, Rick, do you understand what I'm saying? And he'll tell me yes every time. I ask, am I making sense? So the responsibility in a skill-based salesperson is always in the salesperson, not to be a martyr, but to understand that if you don't get the deal, it's always because of you. Yeah. If he doesn't work with me, it's because of me. Every time, because I didn't establish trust. Mm-hmm. Because if I say to you, I need to think about it, it's because you don't let me think. I don't really trust you. I'm not sure, because I have said this example a million times. And this is a very true story. My mom had a purse store. I mean, out of her home, back out of Oklahoma. She made purses. She's an amazing seamstress. She does quilts, she does everything. It's perfect. It's perfect. Like it's like scientifically perfect. It's weird. Okay. I like to choose the colors. She doesn't choose the colors I want all the time, but that's the difference, but I can't make them perfect like that. I don't care if it's off a quarter inch. My thing will be like that, right? So she really nails this down. And I said to her, Mom, you should take credit cards so that you could sell more. And do you know what she said to me? Okay, honey, well, whatever you said. Like there's no question, right? I'm not going to set my mom up wrong. I'm going to do everything that is the best of my knowledge. I used to be a credit card guy. I'm not going to start a store without gift cards, a loyalty program, the ability to take checks, cash, credit, debit, right? Charge cards. What's out there? Money's changed. It's the fifth of an ounce piece of plastic, okay? I'm going to take everything, and I don't care which card you use, Amex, whatever, I don't care. That's the cost of doing business. I didn't want to have a credit card machine when I was little. I just need one to make money. This is the way you think. So it's like, what's the encompassing? What's the full encompassing relationship of this person? It's always down to trust, and it comes from saying what they're saying back, getting feedback, hearing each other through the process, not just hearing the person say it and go, okay, great. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and then I'm going to get you some numbers and I'll send you a report. Okay, bye.
Yeah.
That is not a salesperson. You're also not making an impression on them, right? Like in our industry, people have a million different lenders to choose from and a few thousand within this area of realtors to choose from.
What's the difference in your brother-in-law who owns Seven Hills Engineering, Steve Hill? What's the difference between Steve and all the other engineers? They all can do it. Remember, I started an engineering firm. I don't even know how to read blueprints hardly at all, but I know how the business goes. And what does he do? Have you ever talked to him? Does anyone in this room know what Steve Hill does that's different than all other engineers?
I 100% know just based on...
So what is it?
He answers his phone. That's the hugest thing.
I was gonna say he's got empathy. Like he cares, and it's such a
okay. But how does he show? How does he show? Okay, I work with a civil engineer right now. I spent a week and a half leaving messages. I showed up at his office. He's a wonderful man. We went to the same school together. We're both graduates of San Francisco State alumni. We're giggling and joking. But I'm like, dude, you need a new phone system. You need a new way. Like you can't allow. I can't. I'm gonna fire you. I'm standing in the middle of his business. Everyone's listening. And I said, I'm going to fire you, and I don't want to. You don't answer your phone.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. We're having
return calls.
We're having the same problem. We got a used jacuzzi, and we have been trying for weeks now to get a repair guy because it's summer. Everyone's got some sort of water source that they need fixed or whatever.
We have events, we have people coming over, we have... Yeah.
But tell me why I'm still trying to get this one guy, I'm giving him a second chance because he's been referred to me by 4 different other companies that don't do above ground spas. So I'm giving this guy a second chance just because of the referrals, but he didn't show up when he was supposed to, and he's terrible at responding to me. He at least has a picture of what's wrong, so he knows what's up. So I mean, but I'm just
texts
like,
are all jumbled up.
But what about when it's winter or when it's off season or when this boom heat problem?
He'll be out of business.
Because
We all
he doesn't
remember.
answer his
I think
phone.
Everyone from the last one, everyone forgets. I went through this in 2008. Okay? I lost a home because the dirt guy and the civil engineer conspired against me to make more money and move more dirt, and that delay caused me to take it into the market crash. I mean,
Could have sold it before.
Could have sold it 6 months earlier if they would have. I didn't know what was going on. I never built a house like that before. So my point being is that, do you know what? I don't remember the guy's last name, but I remember Tony as his first name as a civil engineer, and he really took advantage of us. Now, he's pretty much out of business, if not completely. Every one of those guys from that period, we meaning the marketplace, all communicated on. And when the time came back up and we started getting busy again, and there it was like, well, I look into my phone and there's the numbers I have. I went delete, and then we looked on the internet and found new people.
Yeah.
Well, what's the other
And
thing?
that's what happens.
What-
They're all going to be out of business, all of the ones. So you're swamped, mortgages at an all-time high, people are going crazy. Have you had any problem calling people back and staying in touch
No.
with everyone in your team?
Nope.
Does that mean you sit back and you just are like, well, it's coming to me anyway. I'm just not going to work as hard.
What do you get, like
No, you
18
can't.
leads in a
that's-
week?
That's the scary thing about sales. You gotta get after it. You gotta grind. I think a lot of people, much like my previous profession, like everybody knows, all the top coaches in the country and the world know, there's a lot of lazy coaches that make a lot of money for what they do.
I'm lazy though. Explain that. I think I'm smart too. So what happens is I
But
find
lazy-
solutions to faster and easier
Yes,
ways.
but there's
I'm
smart,
still doing the client
there's
stuff.
smart lazy, and then there's lazy. There's
Yes,
the lazy
right.
that they literally do nothing.
In our
and then
family, they're
lazy.
smart stupid
You try
too. They're
to
some of
make
the
your life
stupidest
easier.
smart people I ever met in my life.
I think kind of going back to the Steve thing, because the way I see Steve, and I'm very close with him, like, the way I know he cares is he talks about these deals outside of these phone conversations.
He
Right.
gets advice from people around
He
him.
gets advice from people around him. So it could be the smallest deal in the world, but he wants to know everything about it so he can understand it. So for instance, and you may have to edit this out because I don't know his confidentiality, whatever.
Well,
But
don't
he's-
use the names.
He's
Yeah.
he's doing a deal where
The school one.
no,
Oh.
this is a separate one where there was no permits for this build.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so the people hired another engineer to do it. It's not working out, but they didn't get the permits before the build. So Steve was approached to do it. And my first reaction was, well, they purposely skipped the permits. Charge them full price for your services. Doesn't matter what they paid to this guy. They're coming to you. You have to pick up the back end. This is a
You got to
grunt work.
fix the problem.
You got to fix the problem. And he
Yeah.
said, and he showed me the plans. He said, well, all this has been done. So if I can just get these answers, these equations here, then it's a lot less work. And I think it's fair to charge him. It was something like 30% off of what he normally does. That's an honest guy right there.
Yeah.
Especially
Right?
now when you could charge 30%
He
more.
can charge. He
Yeah.
can do whatever
Easy.
he wants.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
Steve. He doesn't feel it's justified in his head or morally right to charge full price for a project that's already half done, regardless that
He is from Nottingham, England. He
Yeah,
could rent a
like-
house for $500 a month. So he
Yeah.
just have a little gap in the
Yeah.
pricing between California
Yeah,
and there.
but these
But I've
people,
seen it.
these people
I know
did
what you mean.
something illegal.
Yeah.
They tried to get around the permits. Now they have to do it, right? That's
the-
So,
that's their
so I
fault.
want to throw this out there just for clarification. It's not illegal.
Not illegal.
It's code violation.
Code
It's not,
violation, yeah.
it's not
Sorry,
against
sorry.
the law.
Yeah.
You are more than welcome to build
But
uncommitted
it's not-
structures on your facility
Yeah,
all day
but
long,
it's not
but you're willing to
it's
suffer
not,
the
it's not
consequences.
gonna benefit you when you try and sell it.
Right,
It
you
can't
can't
go
count-
in towards.
Yeah.
You can't count the
price.
square footage when you sell it.
But Steve looks
You
at it
can do
as
it. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
you're
face
supposed to.
value.
Stupid, though.
He's honest with the project, and he showed me what he charged. I was like, I think that's fair. But it just shows that he cares, right? He
Right.
understands the situation. He could totally charge probably double
Right.
what he would normally, but he's not doing that. So that's kind of how I see Steve, why he's good at what he does.
And that is a huge advantage for you as a mortgage lender because you have the ability to consult with a designer, a real estate
Right.
broker, and a structural engineer design firm to decide whether or not this house is going to make sense to buy and renovate and all. I mean, you just add so much more value. I mean, if you want to just go get a mortgage somewhere in a bubble, you could just do it online. Like
Oh, yeah,
really,
yeah, yeah.
like you think you're so smart. You know, everyone always says the client's already right. And I said this in a million podcasts. I've never met one that's right yet, except about what they want. They're always right about what they want. They just don't know how to get there. And so they get mistaken. And they is me. I'm a consumer too after 5 o'clock. Guess what? We're all consumers after 5 p.m. I do the same thing. And I'm the easiest sale. I remember buying a refrigerator at Sears when they used to do it, sell them there. And I remember the guy came in and he did this. He did this only thing right. Any reason why I can't send this home with you today? And I thought, that's what my uncles taught me when I was 18. I go, no, there's no, and because that's the answer, right? No is a yes for them.
Yeah.
Right.
Whenever you can ask in sales a question that makes it a yes for
Did
you
I
as
catch
the
you at a
sales,
bad time?
no, right?
Yeah.
That's why people argue with me on all of these points. I'm like, do you want to be right or do you want to be successful?
You know what? That's actually my favorite one. When let's say like we got a lead, someone I'm calling back, cold lead, warm lead, whatever, and whenever I say, "Did I catch you at a bad time?" They're like, no. Well, I'm at work right now. You know what I mean?
First response is no.
They'll be like, no, you didn't catch me at a bad time. But they'll be like, wait, actually, I am at work. Like, I can only talk for a minute or whatever it is.
And what do you do? And what do you do?
Well, I mean, it just depends on what their thing is. Is like, do they need to hang up right now, or can I talk to them just a little bit? You know what I mean? So
Right.
if I can, we have a quick conversation as fast as they can, so they at least know who I am. They're not going to reject my next call or whatever.
Right.
Like,
Note my call,
establish
save my call, save my
rapport
number.
as quickly as I can.
Right.
But if it's like, no, you got to call me back, then I put it in my calendar at the exact time they said to call back, and then whatever. Because there was this one guy, he was like, I'm in the middle of work right now, actually, but I do want to talk to you, so just call
This
me right back.
is a core tenet of a skill-based salesperson, okay, in which the objective is to move and advance the relationship. Mm-hmm. And when you're in a real high volume sales environment, I sold cable television advertising in Seattle for a while, and we had just a ton of sales guys as a bullpen and the whole thing. And I learned a lot of good things by overhearing salespeople, overhearing them, right? And one of the things that the best salespeople always do is they advance the relationship, but not as at the cost of losing it. Like they're not pushing so hard. Like I care about clients indefinitely like crazy. Prospects, which is a pile of who knows what, not that much. Because you received 15 or 18 leads from us in a week, and within that, you had everything from what? I can't bankrupt, you're not going to be able to buy a house, to how fast can we get your loan processed?
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Would you say?
I mean, the worst nightmare where Johnny's telling me this is the perfect first deal for you to do because it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Right? And all the way to, oh my goodness, we have to have 2 conversations with these people that bang, 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 they're in a home.
Right.
Yeah.
So the full spectrum, yes, very.
So in the
and
swarm,
everything in between.
And everything
in the
in between.
swarm of your life, you're the one who decided that your measurement of yourself ends on the 31st of this month. And it starts over on the 1st of next. You and a group of people that work in a company decided that you're also going to measure how far and start and stop your life on January 1st and March 31st, every 3 months. Then you decided you're going to stop your life again and measure it at the end of January, from January 1st to December 31st. That's called a calendar year. And that you decided. Americans, years ago, decided we're going to drive on the right side of the road while the rest of the world decided the left of the road. Okay? These are just decisions. All right? So when you talk like the way you do about, I've just got a pile of stuff and I'm going to work through it and we're going to go in, that's the world of sales. You're the one that's deciding that you have to make it all happen by the end of this week. You're the one that measures it. There is no such thing. Mm-hmm. The skill-based salesperson knows that I always am successful. And there always are ups and downs. And if my cash flow is that bad, I better go get a credit line, because sometimes I make $150,000 in a week, and other times I go for 2 months with not one dime coming in.
Right.
What am I going to do? Everyone always remembers the $150,000 a month. They never remember, like when we went one time for 4 months with no income, and all of a sudden you average that out. You're not making that much when you've got a $25,000 a month advertising bill. And $1,700 car payments and, stuff like that, because you have to be all fancy in California. Please let us drive old 1971 Ford pickup trucks. We'll be happy. You have to drive these big elite vehicles to seem successful around here.
Only if they're good on gas.
They're not. So the skill-based salesperson is doing this to wrap up, our podcast today is to really get it focused that the skill comes from asking, not telling. Mm-hmm. And when you ask a question, you ask another question, and I'll leave you with this example. Palmer Hardy Hancock here, when she was in 4th grade in Aliso Viejo, California, sat out on the back step with me on the clearest night possible and said, "Dad, why are there stars?" I gave her some answer, and she said these words. One single word. Why? Why? Now, at this time, it's important to understand this. At this time, I was building a Bonco International, okay, which sold for $46 million after 4 years. Okay, I built it out of my loft in Aliso Viejo. I did the logo, I did the whole 9 yards. I had some investors, okay? We went through this whole thing, okay? I could not get people to understand certain training concepts. A lot of it, I was new, I was still up and coming, trying to figure out a lot of things. And one of the things was analyzing customers and asking a lot of good questions for customers and how to do it and all of that. And so then I told her some more. I'll just jump to the end. By the end, this is what I'm saying to her. Well, honey, that's the star constellation Betelgeuse, which is in the, I said, that's Betelgeuse, which is in the star constellation, the Orion Nebula. Okay, this is a 4th grader. I am now talking at this because she did one thing. Why? And all I wanted to do is say, because I tried to make it light. It was like a 20-minute conversation, and I'm explaining how stars are formed and all she did was say why. So what do you think, everyone, after today's podcast is the number one question to ask your customer or prospect?
Why?
Thank you. Have a great day. See ya.